My TED is going to be a little bit different because I'm going to be talking to you all about inspiring change, but we're going to do that within ourselves with the power of core values. So I'm sure why you are all wondering why I'm holding this here. While this might look like a power cord to you all, this was a lifeline for me, and I'm going to tell you why through a story. So I'm the product of teenage parents, and I'm also a first-generation college student. Up until I came to college, my family struggled really bad financially. We had a lot of hardships, but we made it through, obviously, because I am here. But I do want to give you all a little bit of a personal insight into that. So on December 5th, 2014, my life drastically changed. So my grandmother and the woman who raised me during a crucial transition that, you know, those teenager years where you're trying to figure out who you want to be and who you want to become, she suddenly passed away. She had a heart attack in front of my siblings and I. And then the next day, we were evicted from our home with nowhere to go, but some trash bags with what we could fit in there and what we could fit in the car. And so from that time up until I graduated high school, we were homeless on 3 separate occasions. There were days at school where my siblings and I would make sure we brought home extra food so that we could make sure, extra sure that we had dinner for that night. And there were also days where my mother would pick us up from school and I had no idea where we were sleeping, whether that had been at a motel or on a friend's living room floor, or even in the car. But through my siblings and I experience with homelessness and diversity, we learned some pretty neat stuff. So we learned everything from how to make women's hygiene products from toilet paper to how to flush a toilet when there's no water, and then to how to borrow the neighbor's power. We learned ways to get around having to study and do homework in the dark. So I actually studied for my SAT in the dark, which is a bit challenging, but you know, you'd be resourceful. I remember sitting outside of one of the motels that we lived in during my sophomore year of high school, and I was thinking that I was never going to be able to go to college at all. And I remember watching the planes flying above me and thinking that I just wish I could get on one of those and fly away and just never ever come back. But what I didn't realize is that I still had 3 important attributes that I needed to embody in order to make my life turn around for the better. And so without these attributes, I wouldn't be here today. And I can say they've really helped me throughout my first few years of adulthood and to get through 4 very stressful years of college. And because of them, I know now that getting on that plane and flying away was never really the right answer. So without the first attribute, which is resiliency, I would have never been able to be here. So I decided not to allow my past experiences to scare me away from something that I always wanted because it was expensive. So I worked harder than I ever had to maintain an excellent GPA and get a good SAT score in order to get as many scholarships as possible to pay for college, which I can gladly say I was successful, as much of a struggle as it was. My parents, they always wanted this for me, and they made that clear, but they did have that talk with me that they were not going to be able to contribute financially, and so it was up to me to get college paid for. And it wasn't feasible for them because I have 2 younger siblings that they still needed to care for. One of them is actually here today, following in my lead. But when I got the opportunity to come here, I wanted to use it as their older sibling to try to inspire them to follow suit and, you know, create generational wealth and just break that cycle of poverty that my entire family went through. And so when I got here, I hit the ground running, but unfortunately that included me separating myself from who I really was. So I came and I got some jobs and I bought new clothes and I tried to act like someone who I really wasn't. And I thought that it was a fresh start because I didn't know anyone here and no one knew who I was, and I didn't have to tell anyone where I came from or how I grew up. And so people always say that when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. But this is a lot easier said than done. Because when life gets difficult, there does come a time where you really have to dig deep and ask yourself, how are you going to pursue your wildest ambitions and your dreams? And the answer is resilience. But it was also during this time where I started to learn the importance of the second attribute, which is humility. I was never able to fully understand how my experiences helped me until I came to this school and I entered the Wall Fellows program, which is a program within the Wall College of Business. And I was welcomed with open arms by people who helped me not only embrace my past, but start to become content with what happened and start to truly heal myself. And after a heartfelt conversation with one of those Wall Fellows, I now realize the true significance of humility. So as a sophomore, I went to 12 hours of tutoring a week for financial accounting. I consider myself a pretty smart kid, but financial accounting was like a foreign language to me. So I actually started going to a few more hours of tutoring a week for macroeconomics, and my tutor was this Wall Fellow. And so during one of our sessions, he looked at me and he randomly said, "I've seen you come in here for so many hours of tutoring for financial accounting every week, and now you're in here for macroeconomics." And then he asked me, "Why do you work so hard?" And so I gave him a surface level answer that I did not understand financial accounting and I wanted an A in the class. But then he saw right through it like a glass of water. And then he proceeded to ask me, "Well, why are you working so hard for an A in only one class and now two? What motivates you to get out of bed every morning and come to more than, at this time, 15 hours a week for tutoring a week?" And so this question caused me to just burst out crying, because since I'd been here, no one really had ever asked me why, what was my why or what motivated me. And so because of that, I spent the next 45 minutes in the back tutoring room of Wall just crying hysterically to this guy that I didn't even know at the time, but now he's a friend. No idea who he was. But I cried hysterically to him about this because I had never told anyone at Coastal in any of that, and he was able to see right through me. And it was the first time that anyone ever had been able to do that. And so because of that, I learned a very valuable lesson that now I'd like to pass on to you all, which is lean into your why and never ever be afraid to use it as your fuel to push forward. And so, because I had the opportunity to share these personal experiences before even applying to the Wall Fellows program, I was comfortable enough to share things that I vowed I was never going to tell anyone, tell a soul when I got here, the 40 plus people who read my Wall Fellows application. And it was at this time when I truly understood how authenticity, which is the third attribute, would help me get farther in life than trying to act like someone who I wasn't. And I'm so grateful to the Wall Fellows, to Coastal, and to my friends for helping me become proud of and confident in who I am today. And because of that conversation with my friend, what was once a painful thing to think about, we can now laugh about how we ate ketchup sandwiches for dinner, or all the cool ways that we spiced up our ramen noodles to make them into home-cooked meals. The opportunity to be in college and to broaden my horizons has substantially helped me develop into and become the woman that I used to see in the mirror 7 years ago and wish I could have been back then when we were at rock bottom. And so with that, I realized that to some of you, you might feel bad or this might make you feel uneasy, but I just want you to know that I couldn't be more grateful for those experiences because they molded me into who I am today. And although the situations were not ideal, it did bring my family closer together, and we always found a way to make each other laugh, even when there was no clear light at the end of the tunnel. And so these attributes and those experiences is why I have the privilege of being a TED speaker today. And so I want to leave 5 pieces of advice for you all on how you can incorporate these attributes into your lives wherever it takes you after today. And so the first one is to learn to appreciate your struggles. So I think a lot of people don't realize how they can really help you But you do have to be adaptable in the aftermath because life will throw some crazy stuff at you, but you have to be able to use them as your motivation. And they've molded you into who you are, and they've prepared you to handle more than you can even possibly imagine. Number 2, be courageous. And by this, I mean, don't ever be afraid to share your personal experiences or your obstacles with other people, because sometimes it only takes one person to talk about things that they've been through or some things that they've had to overcome to make other people feel more comfortable with their own. Number 3, be true to yourself. You have to be true to yourself because your foundation is built upon it. Number 4, always challenge yourself. If you don't challenge yourself, then you will lose the opportunities that arise from adversity. And then last but not least, remember that there is always a light at the end of the tunnel. Thank you.